Nolan Buchanan. He is in prison for executing his father, his father's fiancée, and his 80-year-old half brother with a rifle before burning their bodies inside a California vacation cabin. He committed the triple homicide when he was just 16 years old to inherit his father's construction business. The murders took place on September 13, 2015, in Greenwood, El Dorado County, California. The family had traveled from their primary home in Benicia to their rural vacation cabin for the weekend. Prosecutors proved that Buchanan had meticulously planned the massacre ahead of time. His internet search history revealed he had looked up night vision goggles, safe cracking techniques, and arson methods prior to the trip. At the cabin, Buchanan shot his 8-year-old brother first, then waited for his father and stepmother to return to the property before shooting them as well. To conceal the executions, Buchanan set fire to the cabin and the victim's remains, which initially triggered a localized wildfire response. He then stole his family's white Dodge pickup truck, drove back to Benicia, and used his father's ATM card at a Starbucks, McDonald's, and a local gas station to fabricate an alibi. When initially questioned, he played the role of a grieving son and denied ever traveling to the cabin. He was arrested at Benicia High School 2 weeks later after detectives found physical evidence, including his fingerprints on the murder weapon hidden near his father's commercial business. Adam Buchanan was 38. He was Nolan's father and owner of Buchanan Construction. Molly McAfee was 37, Adam's fiancée and Nolan's stepmother. Gavin Buchanan, 8 years old, was Nolan's younger half brother. Charged as an adult, Buchanan maintained a plea of not guilty throughout his legal process. When forced to testify during his June 2018 trial, he shifted his story and tried to blame his deceased father. He claimed his father went into a blind rage, shot Molly and Gavin, and turned the weapon on him. Buchanan argued that he wrestled the 22 caliber rifle away and shot his father in self-defense. However, the prosecution utilized forensic trajectory modeling of the bullet hole in 8-year-old Gavin's skull to prove to the jury that Buchanan's sequence of events was forensically impossible. On June 13, 2018, a South Lake Tahoe jury found Buchanan guilty on 3 counts of first-degree murder, along with special firearm enhancements. On July 12, 2018, El Dorado County Superior Court Judge Suzanne Kingsbury sentenced him to 150 years in prison, 50 years to life per victim. Despite the massive 150-year sentence, California state laws, specifically Senate Bill 394 and state youth offender parole guidelines, mean that individuals who commit felonies as minors are guaranteed a parole review after a mandatory baseline of incarceration. Buchanan remains incarcerated at Valley State Prison in Chowchilla, California, with his first technical eligibility for parole scheduled for October 2039. Tabitha Buck. She was convicted of second-degree murder for assisting her friend in the brutal, jealousy-fueled slaying of a 16-year-old classmate. The murder occurred on December 20, 1991, in East Lampeter Township, Pennsylvania. Buck's friend, Lisa Michelle Lambert, had become obsessively jealous of a high school sophomore named Lori Shaw, whom Lambert viewed as a romantic rival. After months of stalking and harassing Shaw, Lambert and Buck hatched a plan to confront her. On the morning of the crime, 17-year-old Buck made a phone call to Shaw's mother, posing as a school guidance counselor to lure her away from the family's apartment. Once the mother left, Buck and Lambert ambushed Shaw inside her bedroom. During the attack, Buck helped pin Shaw down, beating and strangling her, while Lambert used a 10-inch butcher knife to slash the victim's throat. A third accomplice, Lawrence Butch Yunkin, Lambert's boyfriend, acted as the getaway driver. Lori Shaw was 16, a high school sophomore who was left bleeding to death in her bedroom floor. Before dying in her mother's arms, she managed to name Michelle Lambert as her attacker. Her tragic death later prompted Pennsylvania to pass its first formal anti-stalking legislation in 1993. Buck and Lambert were tried as adults. During her trial, Buck adamantly denied participating in the actual killing. However, her defense suffered a devastating blow during closing arguments when her attorney held up her starter jacket to the jury. Unbeknownst to the lawyer, the missing tip of the murder weapon's broken blade fell out of the pocket. In 1992, Buck was convicted of second-degree murder and criminal conspiracy. She was sentenced to mandatory life in prison without the possibility of parole and was sent to the State Correctional Institution, Muncie. In November 2017, following federal juvenile resentencing mandates, a Lancaster County judge recalculated Buck's sentence to 28 years to life. Her defense successfully argued that she had been under the total influence of Lambert and had since maintained a flawless disciplinary record as a model prisoner. In August 2019, the Pennsylvania Board of Probation and Parole voted to grant her release. Buck was officially paroled from prison just days before the 28th anniversary of the crime. Under the strict terms of her lifetime parole, she is permanently banned from living or working in Lancaster County. She is barred from making any contact with the Shaw family and must take prescribed psychiatric medication. Lisa Michelle Lambert, who was 18 and an adult at the time of the crime, remains in prison serving life without parole. Lawrence Youngkin pleaded guilty to third-degree murder, and he was paroled in 2004. Jenny Bansam. She was sent to Colorado's youth offender system for smothering her 7-year-old nephew to death after a trivial argument over video games. She was 16 years old at the time of the homicide. The murder occurred on August 6, 2018, in the Montbello neighborhood of Denver, Colorado. 7-year-old Jordan Vong went into Bansam's bedroom and asked to play video games with her. When Bansam refused and told him to leave, the young boy stayed and lay down on her bed instead. In a sudden fit of anger, Bansam pushed Jordan off the bed, slammed him down, and suffocated him to death. After realizing he was dead, she wrapped his body in a towel and comforter and hid him inside her bedroom closet. She then went downstairs and stayed entirely silent while her panicked family spent the next day searching for Jordan and reporting him missing to the police. The detectives discovered Jordan's body inside her closet the following night during an execution of a search warrant. Jordan lived in the same household as Jenny. Autopsy reports later confirmed his cause of death was a homicide via a neck compression and suffocation injury. In March 2021, Bansam, then 18, avoided a lifetime prison term by pleading guilty to reduced charges of second-degree murder and tampering with a deceased human body. The first-degree murder charges were officially dropped as part of the agreement. On June 23, 2021, Denver District Court Judge Erica Englert sentenced Bansam to 7 years in the state youth offender system. The judge also imposed a 30-year adult prison sentence, which was suspended on the condition that she successfully complete her time in the youth program without behavioral violations. During her tearful sentencing, Bansam expressed deep remorse, stating that she took an innocent life and had to pay for her sins. Zachary Burkhardt. He is in prison for shooting and killing two of his high school classmates using an illegal homemade ghost gun during a neighborhood dispute. He was 18 years old at the time of the shooting. The crime occurred on April 25, 2021, in the garage of a home located in Springfield, Virginia. The incident began as an ongoing feud over social media between two rival groups of students who attended South County High School. The dispute escalated into a physical fistfight inside the garage. During the altercation, Burkhardt emerged from inside the house with a 9mm handgun capable of firing in fully automatic mode. He pulled the trigger twice, expelling 4 bullets that struck and killed two teenagers. Burkhardt had built the untraceable ghost gun himself using parts he purchased online. Both victims were students at South County High School. Ershine Elazer was 17. He was found inside the garage suffering from multiple gunshot wounds to the chest. Calvin Van Pelt was 16, shot in the back and discovered outside in front of a neighboring home. Burkhardt was charged with second-degree murder. During his August 2022 trial, he admitted to the killings but claimed he acted in self-defense. He testified that he was an aspiring drug dealer and he was terrified because he believed the rival group had arrived to kill him and his friends. His defense argued he fired the weapon because his friend was being severely beaten by multiple people. The jury ultimately rejected both the top-tier murder charges and Burkhardt's self-defense claims. In August 2022, they found him guilty of the lesser-included charges of 2 counts of voluntary manslaughter. He was acquitted on charges of using a firearm in the commission of a felony. On January 19, 2023, a Fairfax County Circuit Court judge sentenced Burkhardt to 20 years in prison, the absolute maximum penalty allowable for his manslaughter convictions. The judge ordered him to serve 10 years for each victim consecutively, back to back, to be followed by 3 years of supervised release. Jessica Burlew. She was sentenced to 10 years in prison for strangling her older partner to death with an electrical cord during an encounter. Because she was sentenced in 2015 to a 10-year term, her prison sentence has already been fully served. The incident occurred on January 18, 2014, inside a home in Glendale, Arizona. Burlew, who was 16 years old at the time, was engaging in rough, consensual activity with her 43-year-old boyfriend. During the act, Burlew used an extension cord to strangle him. According to police reports, Burlew stated that the strangulation was a common part of their relationship, but her boyfriend failed to use their agreed upon safety word and lost consciousness. After realizing he was dead, Burlew used a razor blade to inflict deep cuts on the victim's face and arms. She later told detectives she initially used the razor to try to revive him, but the cutting subsequently evolved into a mechanism to relieve the intense stress of the situation. Burlew's mother discovered the victim's body on the bed and contacted law enforcement. The girl fled to a neighboring apartment, but she was quickly located and arrested. Burlew's boyfriend, the 43-year-old man, was named Jason Ash. Following her arrest, advocacy groups rallied behind Burlew, highlighting severe systemic failures. Her defense and family revealed she had been diagnosed with schizophrenia and autism, requiring intense psychiatric treatment since age 4. At the time of the crime, she was in the protective custody of Arizona's Department of Child Safety, but had run away from her group home shortly before meeting Ash. Rather than take the case to a full trial, Burlew accepted a plea bargain from the state. On September 4, 2015, she officially pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. On October 21, 2015, a Maricopa County Superior Court judge sentenced her to 10 years in state prison. I've got nothing good to say about Jason Ash in this situation. Josiah Bush. He is serving a sentence of 75 years to life in prison for his role in a violent Thanksgiving Eve home invasion that left two young men dead. He was 16 years old at the time of the double homicide. The incident took place late on the night of November 27, 2019, inside a home on West Columbus Avenue in Bellefontaine, Ohio. Bush, along with two other teenage accomplices and an adult getaway driver, traveled from nearby Urbana to target the residence. The teens had previously been to the home. Armed with guns, the teenagers forced their way into the house around 11:30 p.m. A chaotic gunfight and assault broke out shortly after entry. Bush and his accomplices shot two men inside multiple times. During the violent home invasion, they also physically assaulted two adult women who were inside the house. One of Bush's juvenile co-defendants was also shot and wounded during the exchange of gunfire. Caleb Chamberlain, 22, was shot multiple times by the home invaders and died at the scene from his injuries. Anthony Schartz was 24. He sustained multiple gunshot wounds, but survived long enough to be hospitalized and then succumbed to his injuries a few days later. In July 2021, following a grand jury review, Bush and his co-defendants were formally indicted. Because of the extreme gravity of the armed home invasion and double murder, Bush's case was transferred from juvenile jurisdiction to be prosecuted in adult court. Unlike some of his co-defendants who accepted plea agreements, Bush maintained a plea of not guilty and took his case to a trial. In October 2022, a 12-member jury found him guilty on 6 heavy felony counts, 2 counts of complicity to murder, and 1 count each of complicity to commit aggravated burglary, aggravated robbery, kidnapping, and felonious assault. On November 10, 2022, Logan County Common Pleas Court Judge Kevin Bragg handed down an aggregate sentence of 75 years to life in prison. The judge applied consecutive 3-year mandatory gun specifications to all individual counts, heavily extending his baseline incarceration time. If Bush is ever paroled in the distant future, he will be legally required to register as a violent offender for 10 years. Bush appealed his conviction, arguing in part that statements he made to detectives as a minor should have been suppressed. In December 2023, the Supreme Court of Ohio upheld his conviction, ruling that the 45-minute interrogation was reasonable and that his constitutional rights were fully protected. He remains incarcerated in an Ohio state prison. Please hit that subscribe button if you like my channel. See you next time. Bye bye.